My experience as a lawyer is that people don't understand car insurance. They either overpay for options on their policy that they don't need, or they waive inexpensive policy options that are really valuable. Stay tuned for information about 5 decisions that you have to make on your car insurance and what you should know about each choice. Hi, I'm Larry DeMarco. I'm a personal injury, workers' compensation, and family law lawyer in Pennsylvania. The first option I'd like to discuss is tort option, full or restricted, full or limited tort. People give up this valuable right because they say to their agent, I want cheap coverage, the cheapest policy option possible. Give me bare bones coverage. Now, I understand that affordability is critical for a lot of people, and I certainly understand the desire to keep your car insurance the lowest possible amount. But if you're going to get the least expensive insurance possible, it's so important to do this knowingly and be aware of what you're giving up. This limited tort discount is really small, and what you give up is huge. You waive your right to sue for pain and suffering unless you have a permanent injury. What's not explained to you, that pain and suffering is really the biggest part of a lawsuit, and permanency happens very infrequently compared to the number of accidents. And a lot of people say, well, that's okay. I don't need to sue unless I'm really seriously hurt. Well, the thing is that you can be seriously injured for a long time, and if it's not permanent, you can't sue for pain and suffering, and that's a steep price for a small discount. So if you're tempted to waive this, if nothing else, before you do it, please carefully compare and contrast the prices for the different coverages. As an aside, this restriction on suing for pain and suffering also applies if you drive an uninsured car. So if your car stops running and it's still registered, don't just stop paying for your insurance. Instead, first contact the state capital, Harrisburg, PennDOT, and unregister your vehicle before you stop paying for your car insurance. The restrictions don't just apply to your car. It follows you as a person, whatever car you get into. And worse, the penalty isn't just for you. It also applies to every family member in your home and on that policy. So when you waive your right to sue, it's all your family members in either event, the limited tort or driving an uninsured car. Second option to discuss and big decision to make, how much coverage should you get? The minimum that you're required to get as a Pennsylvania driver is $15,000. Here's the general rule of thumb. Get coverage limits up to the amount of equity that you have in your home. And the reasoning behind that is that you don't want to have to take out a loan on your home just to pay a judgment. You want the insurance so no one takes your house. If there's a judgment for more than the value of your house, you're still protected because you can declare bankruptcy. So insure up to the equity in your house. Third policy option I want to discuss is uninsured and underinsured motorist. Uninsured motorist is exactly what it says. Your policy will pay you if you're hurt by an uninsured or hit-and-run driver. Insurance companies are required to offer you this coverage in the same amounts as your liability limits, and you can only lower them in writing on a special form, just like the tort waiver option. I recommend having the highest limits of this coverage available, particularly if you live in crowded, urban, and low-income areas where people can't afford car insurance. So unless you ask for this lower limit, which I don't recommend, you get the same amount of coverage as your liability coverage. Underinsurance coverage is the part of the policy that pays you if you're hurt, if you're hit by someone who has coverage, but it's not enough to pay you. Remember, in Pennsylvania, people are only required to have a small $15,000 policy. And if you're seriously hurt and really need insurance, that's not going to pay a fraction of the damages. So the key is not to waive or reduce it. And the reason? Why would you want to pay more for insurance and protect other people than what you pay for yourself and for your family? This coverage is inexpensive in proportion to the value you get when you need it, which is why I recommend not waiving this coverage and keeping it. Another part of uninsured motorist coverage is the stacking option. And when you hear stacking, think multiplying, because when you have stacking coverage, you get to multiply your policy limits by the number of cars that you have. And just like the uninsured motorist and underinsured motorist, it can only be waived in writing on the special form. I don't recommend that you give up this extra coverage for the same reason. Keep the coverage for you and your family as high as you can. And it's got a high value in proportion to the low cost anyway. If the law requires you get insurance, get the full benefit. So before you waive this coverage, call your agent and specifically ask for the price difference. And the savings will pale in comparison to the peace of mind that you bring. Fourth option to discuss, collision coverage for property damage, meaning to your vehicle. Now, these claims are much more common, even though they don't cost as much. But because they're so much more common, the coverage is more expensive, and therefore insurance companies draw more profit from this coverage. Insurance is required, but collision coverage is not. And the smartest way that you can save on your policy is either to refuse collision coverage or increase the deductible by the highest value that you can. Remember, property damage is limited. You can't have $1 million claim against you. It's only the value of your car. So here's the biggest factor. If you can afford to repair your car with any money you have, savings, or if you can absorb that cost of a fender bender, your premiums will drop substantially by waiving this coverage. You'll save a ton of money on the long haul. Do the savings comparison with a calculator to determine just how much money you'll save. Discuss with your agent what the price difference is, and then multiply those annual premiums, the yearly premiums, by the number of years that you've driven without an accident. And if you had a fender bender and paid out, minus the cost of the payout from that savings. And again, factor in the deductibles. If you do the math, you'll probably be able to purchase several cars with the savings by being able to pay out of pocket a fender bender or the value of a car. By bearing that risk, the insurance companies will reward you handsomely. The fifth option to discuss is whether to increase the value of your medical coverage or get wage loss. When you get hurt in any accident, whether you caused it or not, you automatically are covered for $5,000 under your own policy. And you have the option to increase it, and it's not expensive. But if you have any other health insurance coverage, it'll kick in after you use that first $5,000 up. So you might not ever need it, and I don't recommend that you pay double coverage if you have good health insurance. And you also can sue for medical expenses if you are not at fault. You can also get wage loss or disability coverage from an auto policy. And someone who has a heavy physical job, where if you hurt your body at all, you're more likely to miss time from work, you might want to get that type of coverage. But I don't generally recommend that for people with light or sedentary jobs. In summary, my advice is to spend time with your agent and do these price comparisons. Although you might think you need to save money at all costs, you don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful and informative for when you have to make a decision on what type of coverage you want. Please catch other informational legal videos on my YouTube channel.
If you or someone you love has been injured or suffered a loss, contact the Law Center. For more information, click the link in the description portion of this video.